up, guys? Welcome back to Life on the Wrist. I hope you guys are doing well today. There's always a discussion about whether quartz is better than mechanical watches, and so what I thought I'd do is I'd give you my 2 cents on this kind of big discussion that is always circling around the watch world. I've done videos where I kind of go into the pros and cons and describe how different versions of mechanical and quartz movements work. So if you haven't seen those, be sure to check out our channel. I'll put links to those videos in the description so you can check that out there. But really what I want to focus on this is if you're trying to decide between a quartz and mechanical piece, what you should, some of the things that you should think about before kind of pulling the trigger on one of those purchases. But before we get into that, if you are new to the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on hit the bell icon so you're notified when we upload. And if you wouldn't mind smashing that like button for us, for the YouTube algorithm, that would really help us out and gets it to more people who love watches, and that's exactly what we should be doing, sharing our passion. So mechanical watches and quartz watches are basically two different types of movements that can be used within a watch. There are other movements that can be used, but these are two very popular and probably the main movements that you're going to end up finding. Just to describe each movement just briefly, I go a little bit more in depth into those videos that I mentioned, so if you want to hear about a little bit more about those types of movements, you can check out those videos. But a quartz watch is essentially a movement that was manufactured to run off of a battery, and a mechanical movement is a movement that is comprised of mechanical pieces like gears and cogs that are put together and are powered by a mainspring. The mainspring is powered, obviously, the power runs through the movements, turns the cogs, and that's kind of how you tell time. There are pros and cons for each of these pieces, and a lot of the times people try to argue between whether quartz is better than mechanical, whether mechanical is better than quartz. I know this sounds like a non-answer, but they should be considered separately, and you shouldn't look at them as a quartz versus mechanical. You should think of it as quartz and mechanical. But here are a couple of things that I would kind of talk through for each of these movements. So obviously, one of the things that is important about watches is the accuracy. Accuracy is something that I think if you have a time-telling device, you want it to be accurate. Now, do we need accurate watches nowadays? Probably not. Your phone tells you the time, so it really isn't super impactful, I guess, on the day-to-day, but it is something you should consider. As a general rule, quartz movements are more accurate than mechanical movements, and so if you're looking for a more accurate watch, quartz is probably the better way to go. However, mechanical watches wouldn't be a thing if they didn't keep time very, very well, and so you can find watches that keep very, very good time that are mechanical movements. So that's obviously something that you can look at. From a price perspective, I think that's another thing that people probably look at. If you look at mechanical and quartz movements, you can actually, as a general rule of thumb, you can find very expensive quartz movements, but you can also find very expensive mechanical movements. I think mechanical watches, you're probably going to see some astronomical prices compared to quartz movements, but there are some watches that do run off of quartz movements that are fairly pricey. There are some fairly large brands that use them, and so a lot of the times quartz movements in some of those brands the price has a lot more to do with the name, but that's a kind of separate discussion. Quartz movements are less expensive to manufacture than mechanical movements, obviously. So as a general rule, quartz watches are a little bit less expensive, but they can also be extremely expensive. And as a general rule, mechanical movements are a little bit more expensive, but you can find some really great affordable pieces out there that are not as expensive. The next thing you probably are thinking about is style, and style really can vary across the board. I think you can get some really incredible looking quartz movements that have very similar stylistic aspects that mechanical watches have, and so style really comes down to what your tastes are, and maybe some of the other factors that you should consider. There is unfortunately a little bit of a there's a I don't want to say trend, but there's a lot of the times when people get into watches, they kind of discount quartz movements. They think that quartz movements are not true watchmaking, and basically say if you don't have a mechanical movement, then you're not really collecting a watch. I think this is a little bit short-sighted. I think there are some really incredible watches with quartz movements, and I think it's a very important part about watch history. The quartz crisis basically shook the entire watch industry, and so obviously there's a place for them in today's society. And I think it's short-sighted because you have to remember that not every person is going to want to have mechanical pieces that are super complicated and are really well renowned within watch collecting. Some of them just want a nice looking watch with a quartz movement in it that's easy to maintain, and I think that's a fine way of enjoying watches, you know. And you can get equally as much enjoyment in a quartz watch than you can in a mechanical watch. So I think it's a little short-sighted to kind of talk about that. But a lot of the times, and I don't want to say this is something that you should try and do, but if you want to impress some sort of watch collector, I guess you can get a mechanical movement instead of quartz. But to me, hobbies are personal. You should shape your watch collecting hobby around you and what you like, and you shouldn't care what other people think. That's exactly why I love the Mimosail regatta timer that I have. It's not everyone's cup of tea. It's definitely very 70s, and it's something that I really love, and so I'm going to own it, wear it, enjoy it, and that's that. So make sure you collect kind of what you love. And I guess that kind of leads me to my last point. Watch collecting, it shouldn't be about, competing, two watches competing against one another. It really should be, what do you love? What has caught your eye, and what do you think you would really enjoy wearing on your wrist? Yes, there are some aspects that you can consider in quartz versus mechanical. As an example, quartz watches, most of the time all you have to do is replace a battery to maintain it, but mechanical watches, the servicing, it might be a little bit more expensive, and there are more things that could possibly go wrong in a mechanical piece. But those are kind of the decisions you have to make when you're trying to figure out what kind of watch you wanna buy. And so I guess the end point that I want to make is, yes, there's quartz versus mechanical, there's pros and cons for each of them. From my perspective, you should collect what you want. Collect what you want to wear, what you think looks nice, what you want to see on your wrist. When you look down at your wrist and you say, wow, I really like this watch, what do you want to be able to see and enjoy? I have mechanical watches, but I also have a quartz piece. I have a really beautiful Seiko that has a lot of personal stories behind it, and so I will always have that watch, but like, for example, today I'm wearing a really beautiful Patek Philippe reference 2594, and this is a mechanical piece. This is a manual wind mechanical piece, and so this brings me just as much joy as that piece does, and that's my collection. But your collection can look different. You could have all quartz pieces because you like the ease of use, and you like the fact that it's extremely accurate, and that can be totally fine. You could have all mechanical, and you could have all automatic. I know collectors who only want automatic pieces because they can't be bothered to wind the watch. I know other people who are like, I have to have manual wind watches because I love winding the crown. These are all things that you can consider, but it's all about your personal taste. What do you want to wear, collect, enjoy, and that's it. So let me know what you think in the comments, what you would prefer, quartz or mechanical. I'd love to hear what you think about these two different watch movements. There are pros and cons for each, and I'd love to talk to you about them, so leave a comment if you wouldn't mind. And also, if you have not subscribed to the channel, be sure to hit the subscribe button and hit that bell icon so you're notified when we upload. Literally any topic you can think of, we cover it here, so we'd love to grow the Life Runners family. And if you wouldn't mind smashing that like button for the YouTube algorithm, it really does help us out. And with that said, guys, thank you so much for watching, and until next time.